So the one thing I wanted to ask you about in particular is Sleep Token, because I feel like this is a band everybody universally loves, and I'm the only person that's like not really on board yet, but I want to be on board because, as everyone on Reddit says, I am the how do you do fellow kids meme. So I want to, whatever the kids think is cool, I want to think it's cool too. I know you're a big fan. What do you think is going on with them, and how big do you think this band can get?
I think they can get huge because they're not a genre band specifically. They don't, because they instantly set the standards and expectations that we're going to give you a pop song followed by a really heavy modern metal song, and everything in between. But they do it well, and I feel like many bands before, not all of them, but many have tried, especially let's say metalcore bands have tried to, like, especially during the 10s to 20s. Holy fuck. They're like, yo, let's make our like soft, like catchy, like radio song. But they go into it with that perspective of let's just do that so we can do a radio song instead of let's make a fucking good song. Like that's really all it comes down to. And so many bands have just thrown out trash in that capacity, you know, and it has nothing to do with it being a softer song. It's just, it's fucking bad.
And you can tell, you can tell that a lot of those bands went into this like, oh, this is going to be our big radio song that's going to get big on Octane, and then we're going to play bigger shows. Like you can smell it. Yeah,
it's not fun, and I feel like the metal scene has been so hasn't been given what it's deserved in the capacity of music delivery for over all these years. So they're a lot more just starved when bands do it right, and I think that's what happens to tie with Sleep Token and some bands like Spiritbox and this more new age of like modern metal instead of just like metalcore, deathcore, or post-hardcore shoegaze. It's all the same fucking band in one song sometimes. Bands are finally like doing it really, really well, and metal fans are like, oh, that's what it's supposed to sound like when a metalhead does a different genre and they actually do it well, and it's not.
I think Sleep Token's pop stuff is extremely well done, and as I've talked about a million times, like that's the moments from them that I like the most. And I feel like a lot of people want them to do the heavier stuff more. I want them to do the pop stuff more, and that's what gets me most excited, because I want metal to be big again, like it was in the 2000s, like actually big. I don't mean like, you know, big on the internet. I mean, actually big. And I think Sleep Token, when they go full pop, they have that potential.
I like the blend because the contrast lets you appreciate both. And that's very important. And that's sometimes my issue is like, I'm a core kid for fucking life. There's no doubt. My fucking merch brand is called Core Kid. That's how much I fucking live and breathe this shit, you know. And whether it's deathcore or metalcore, like love those genres, but deathcore specifically, sometimes it's like, I can only listen to the fucking guttural Lorna Shore breakdown like so many times in so many songs now, because it's like there's no contrast. There's nothing that makes it special anymore. It's just like, hey, another band that fucking looked up, you know, what Dickie Allen was doing in fucking 2014 or whenever Infinite Annihilator came out, right? Like, you know, it's cool, it's talented, but it's just like there's no contrast. And actually, I think also why Lorna is doing so well is because they're so heavy, but they have such the contrast of all the symphony and melody that makes you appreciate the heavy moments, and like,
genuine emotion in their music too.
Yes, and it's so funny. I think that's just like, heavy or not, like metalheads just want good emotional fucking music.
Everybody does.
Yeah, that's how you connect to it. So when it comes to Sleep Token, like, and they combine those two worlds plus other, you know, like they'll have like funky moments, but they do it well. I feel like that's just such a systematic shock to the metal scene that, you know, the song is obviously still really good, but it might be it might push it even further because people are just shocked that it's even happening in the first place, even though it was never any rule that these genres could never play nice together. It's just bands were not doing it, I think, well, a lot of the time.
I mean, Only Issues, they were the only, and they were too early.
Yes, they
were too ahead of their time. Issues could come out now, and they would be 5 times bigger than they were when they came out.
Probably, yeah.
People are ready for it now. Like back then, people were like, "What in the fuck is this?"
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, bands like Issues And bring me all these like gateway modern bands that got so much shit. And I'm not saying everything they do is perfect. Sometimes they write like maybe a dud, and that's fair. Like you know, out of 11 songs, if one's kind of like shit, or maybe it's one of the singles, like
nobody bats 1,000.
Yeah, and that's that's fine, right? But these bands that push that forward, and then they are doing it well a lot of the time, and then they push the genre and open up metal a bit more. I think they're so fucking important, and I want to live in a world where you can have a song that's literally like a fun, well done pop song that's catchy and has meaning and is emotional, and you can have a fucking brutal deathcore slam track right next to it, but they work in harmony with each other instead of work against each other because the band took time to make them work together. Like, that's great to me.
Another thing I'm seeing with Sleep Token, and I'd say the sort of Deftones sort of branch of things, all the shoegaze type stuff, is I guess we'll say horniness being the sort of the undercurrent.
Metalhead's down bad, bro. Yeah,
that's right. But I've also seen way more girls into metal lately than say, I would say like 5 or 7 years ago was like when it was just straight Reddit nerds.
Yeah.
And there's way more girls into metal now, which is great because if you remember, 10, 15 years ago when metalcore was probably at its peak, that was when a lot of the girls, from the MySpace generation and stuff were into it.
Yeah.
And, girls, Redditors, you may not believe this, but they are half the planet. So they matter.
Well, it's metal has been combining with I just call it alternative culture, but it's like I throw in like trap metal, TikTok, emo rap, fucking.
It's all the same